Here's what my Hammond RT-2 console looks like with the drawbar assembly removed. A couple things I wanted to point out. Over here inside this round can are the matching transformers, impedance matching transformers. And these are the back side of the preset panels. And all these wires you see hanging loose here are wires that I removed, I unsoldered from the drawbars. I labeled each one of them so I know where to put them back. Ordinarily, you could tell just by looking at the color, but this is like a 60-year-old organ, and it's got the cotton woven wire, and the colors are so faded that I can't hardly tell one color from the next. So like yellow and orange look the same, and violet's really faded out, red's pretty faded. They all look about the same, really. So I just went ahead and put a piece of masking tape on them with a number so I know how they go back on. The other thing I'll mention is there's a large bundle of wires that comes out of the right-hand side of the drawbar assembly, and it goes down into this tray, and it comes all the way over here, and then it comes out the tray here, and it goes over here to the lower preset panel. And then on the left-hand side of the drawbar assembly, there's another set of wires like that come out, and they go in through here, and they go to the upper drawbar assembly. But to get the set that's in the tray here, they're held captive by 1, 2, 3 metal brackets. There's metal brackets that go on here, and they hold this tray up against this plate, and they also hold the wiring harness captive down in there. So you've got to remove those 3 metal brackets. And I also had to clip. There was the wires were all bundled together here. There's a piece of protective insulation here so that they don't short out on the edge of this metal bracket when they come off of there. It's like a piece of woven fiberglass or something. So I just leave that in there. When I put the cable back in there, I'll lay them back in there. And then there was like some cotton twine wrapped around there and tied tight, so I'll have to retie that. But I wanted to point out this metal tray in here. Right now it's hanging loose because there's nothing holding it in. There's 3 brackets is what holds it in. So you'll have to loosen them to get the drawbar assembly out. Hope that helps. I thought I'd make this short video to show you how you get a drawbar assembly off of a Hammond RT-2 console. There's a couple of videos out on the internet that explain how to do this, but I had a little bit of trouble after watching those videos understanding exactly which screws come out. Here's one of the screws that's actually holding it in. The screws are long like that. Most of these other screws I've taken out and then put back in when I realized that they weren't the right ones. There's 14 screws holding my drawbar assembly onto my RT-2 console. So here's the ones that I had to remove. There's a pair here on the first drawbar set. There's a pair between drawbars 3 and 4, and then there's another pair just to the right of drawbar number 9. The second set of drawbars between drawbars 3 and 4, there's one here, just the front one. Don't remove the rear, just the front. And then there's between 5 and 6, just the rear. And then on the base drawbars, there's a pair between drawbars 1 and 2. The next set of 9, between 4 and 5, there's a pair. And then on the last set of drawbars, there's a pair just to the left of drawbar 1. And then between 6 and 7, there's another pair. That's 14 screws total. These wires that you see here are the wires that connect to the preset panels in the back. These wires they're attached to the very right end of the preset panels. Once that goes to the upper preset panel and the other goes to the lower preset panel. And there's a pair of wires that goes on each bar on the preset panel. There's this wire, and then there's a matching wire that comes from the matching transformer. So two of these go together, and then they're screwed onto the preset panel. I haven't taken the rest of it apart yet, so I'm going to take it apart and clean it out. And as I do that, I'll add a few more video clips. I hope this helps. Okay, here's the next stage of disassembly. The pulls sit on like this. They're held on the underside with a screw. So you flip this entire assembly over, and all the screws are exposed. So you remove the screws, and once you remove the screws, these drawbars, you push them from front to back. They come out the back. And here's what my drawbars look like. They have, hidden from view underneath the plastic pieces, is a letter X and the letter A. I'm not sure what the significance of that is. But anyway, the drawbar itself is a two-piece metal assembly. There's a thick piece that I'm holding, and it's got the numbers on there, 1 through 8. But then here on this end, you'll notice there's a springy piece, and on the very tip of it there is a contact. And I can see by inspection they've got some wear on them, but they look like they're in pretty good shape. So I'm going to unscrew that screw and remove that springy part and clean both pieces. And while I have the springy part off, because it's also got the solder tab on the end, and you can see there's 60-year-old rosin on there from when it was soldered at the factory. And I'm gonna clean off all that solder and get them all cleaned up and ready to be resoldered when I put them back together again. Here's one of the drawbars taken apart. Here's the real heavy metal part, and it's got 2 bumps on it, one there and one there, and then this piece fits on top of there, and there's a couple of holes that line up with the bumps, which keeps the thing lined up. And then there's the screw that goes in there, and the wires coming up solder on here. So this is the only part that really needs good electrical contact, and since this is all one piece, I'm just going to get that cleaned up, and I'm going to remove this solder. I'm going to buff this piece off a little bit down here and clean it up maybe with some acetone or something to get all the grease off, so when I get ready to resolder it, I'll get a nice clean solder joint. Here's the contact, and it sticks up by spring action. I guess it rides in that drawbar housing, and it looks like when you pull a drawbar in and out, this little contact here is what rides against the comes in contact with the various drawbars in there. Well, here's the next stage of disassembly of the drawbar unit. I don't think I'm going to disassemble it any further. I think I'm just going to clean the bus bars. There's the bus bars. There's two sets, one for the upper manual, one for the lower manual. You can see they're filthy dirty in there. Here's where they split, and you'll notice that one there, which is a ground bus bar, continues all the way across. And if you take a look here, you can see for some reason this bus bar is pretty clean. I don't know why. All the other ones are really filthy. And if you look at these little shiny points right there, that's where the contact rides across them as you pull the drawbars out. The little contact slides up and down like that. This is the back of the unit. Whoops, excuse me. This is the back of the unit. This is the front of the unit. And a couple of cautions. When you take it apart, I would draw a little diagram of what goes where, what goes in what holes, because most of the screws look like this, but there's a few like this that are posts. So the post, hope that's focusing. So those screw in like this from that's the bottom of the unit, and then they protrude down into the top of the unit. And another thing, when you take these insulator pieces off, take note of these, because the ones that look like this, those go towards the back. The ones that look like that go towards the front. And these little short ones are the ones that are used for the bass drawbars, for the bass pedals. There's the other one. These things are all bent up. I don't know. I don't think I'm going to try and straighten them because I don't want to crack them. But I think I'm just going to get some solvent and some towels and just start wiping that down. These are metal bars that are holding the bus bars in, and if you look at it real carefully, underneath here is a plastic insulator. So I think I'm just going to leave that alone, wipe this all down, and when I'm done I'll make sure that with my ohm meter I'll make sure that there's no shorting between them or anything. And then what I did to keep track of what's where, I drew myself a little diagram like this, and I marked where the posts were. The post, as opposed to the screws, the posts go here and here and here and here. So I made a little diagram, because putting this thing back together, if you don't take some notes when you take it apart, good luck getting it back together the right way. Well, after quite a bit of cleaning, I've decided this is as clean as I'm going to get it without going absolutely nuts with this stuff. It's a lot cleaner than it was when I first opened it up. I tried a bunch of different things. I used this QD contact cleaner with a toothbrush. That got a lot of it out. And also I ended up using some Q-tips with mineral spirits. And then finally, at the end, I decided to wipe them down with a real thin coating of this CRC 2-26 lubricant, electrical grade lubricant. So we'll see how that works. And I think I sprayed this stuff on I didn't spray this directly onto the bars, bus bars. I sprayed it onto a towel, and then I just wiped a thin film onto the bus bars. But I'm hoping that'll help preserve them and also lubricate the area where the contacts come up over the bus bars. There's these little bumps. These are the ratcheting type. And when you move from one bus bar to another, you go over this Bakelite looking little bump slot, and so I figure a little bit of lubricant will maybe help that work a little bit smoother. So at this point, I think this is as clean as I'm going to get it. Oh, and I also, down here on this end, there's the ends of those bus bars were wrapped with some paper insulation, and it was all torn up. I think mice might have even chewed on it. So I wrapped some electrical tape around there. It wasn't shorted out, but I went ahead and wrapped some around there anyway. And then another thing I did once I got done was I took my ohm meter and put it on the highest ohmage scale and just made sure that there's no resistance measurable in between any of the bus bars. So they all measure an open circuit, which is good. Here's what the bottom piece looks like with the metal post on it. Earlier in the video I mentioned that you got to remember where those metal posts are. They look like screws. They're screwed in on one end, but not on the other. It's just like a pin. So those have to be put on first, and then this whole thing can flip upside down and go in like that. I guess those metal posts help you get the whole assembly lined up or something. And once you get those on there, then I think I'll be able to put the rest of the screws in. We'll see what happens. Okay, there it is all back together again. It's still upside down. So that's what it looks like. The rest of the holes that you see in there are used to mount the drawbar assembly down on top of the back onto the console, on top of the vibrato selector assembly. So now I'm just going to flip it back over so it's right side up, and then I'm going to I've partially assembled the drawbars. I've got them all cleaned up now, so I'm going to put them back in and put the colored caps on and put a little bit of lube on them and call it a day. Okay, I've got them all back together now, and it's right side up. In case you don't have the colors of the pulls memorized, you might want to write them down. For example, the first two are brown. Anyway, that's the wiring harness for the upper manual, and this is just a test that I'm doing. I've got all these set on the number 2, and so I have my the ground lead of my meter connected to wire number 2. I numbered the wires before I removed it, and I have my meter set on ohms and to beep when it completes the circuit. So I have that on wire number 2, and I have all those drawbars set to 2, so each one of these, when I touch it, it should complete the circuit. Okay, now these don't work. Those are the base bars, and these are the ones for the lower manual. They're connected to that wiring harness. And so I'll test that one later. So by doing this and by pulling them out to each number, 1 through 8, and by connecting this to wire 1 through 8, and listening for continuity, testing for continuity, you can just make sure that things aren't shorted out.